with something that is not even a living thing in the first place, but it is being able to give you what a living person would give you in terms of the love, the pleasure, the happiness. I think that's something which is really embedded into the Enfield, culture as such. Hi, my name is Prateek. I'm based out of Chennai, and we work on motorcycles day and night. We run a brand called Service Plus, where we work on bikes, we customize, we maintain, we service motorcycles of all kinds, from small 100cc Activas to 500cc Enfields, and yeah, that's the fun part. So my first encounter with the Enfields was way back when I was in 10th standard. I used to have a neighbor who was a wrestler. He was about 140, 130, 140 kgs wrestler. And one of his friends had dropped by and he was riding an Enfield. It was parked outside my house. And I just looked at the bike back in 10th standard and I fell in love with it. It was an old cast iron 500 Bullet with the gears on the opposite sides. And at that time I was riding a small Hero Honda Ambition 133cc bike. And I was really intrigued. I wanted to ride that bike. I told my neighbor that, I want to take this bike for a ride. And he said, yeah, okay, take it, very casually. But he said, okay, remember, it's an Enfield, it's got the gear shifts the other way around. I'm like, yeah, I'll remember. I was too excited. I took the bike. I spent about 15 minutes trying to start the bike. I couldn't start it. So he came out and he gave that decompression, kick, push, putt, and then the bike starts. And then I take the bike for about 100 meters up the road and 100 meters down the road. And on the way back, everyone could see that smile on my face, because there was something about that bike which was very unique. The feeling of riding a big bike, the idea of having, it was a chariot-like feeling. It didn't feel like you were riding a bike. It was like you're riding a chariot. It's that grand for a guy of that small age. So I immediately fell in love with the bike, but I never really got my hands onto it until when I reached my second year of college. In my second year of college, me and my brother decided to do Leh, and that's when I rented out a bike from Delhi. Again, fell in love with the Enfields. For the second time, I rode them. The next year, we decided to do a ride around Rajasthan, where we again rented out bikes, and again we took a couple of Enfields around Rajasthan. And by that time, I was completely hooked. I was already a half a mechanic by the time. It had broken down so many times. There are 10 things I could tell without even knowing anything about it. When I moved to Dubai to work for my job, I remember getting my first salaries SMS on my phone at 11 o'clock saying your salary has been credited. And I went up to my boss and I told him that, I need a half days off. I left office at 12. I went straight to the Royal Enfield dealership in Dubai and I bought myself the Battle Green Royal Enfield EFI 500. It was from my first salary, on the first day of getting my salary, my first month in Dubai. And ever since, this bike has been with me. I rode it not in Dubai. I couldn't ride it a lot, just for about 8 to 10 months. But when I decided to come back to India, this had to come back with me. I got her back to India, and in India, we've done a lot of riding on this bike. If I'm not wrong, we've done about 55,000 kilometers on this bike till date. We've done numerous short rides, long rides, good rides, bad rides, fun rides, frustrating rides, all sorts of stuff. But I think maybe that's what Enfield does to you. It not only becomes a part of your good memories, it also becomes a part of your bad memories. And that is one important aspect of it. If you can live with it, with this kind of ownership experience, then definitely there's a bond that is way beyond just a bike and a man bond. I've had some solid experiences with this, and I'm still looking forward to having a lot more in the future as well. So after I started riding bikes and got into the Enfield, the categories, automatically there was an attraction towards classic bikes. Suddenly I knew about Nortons, about BSAs, about Ariels and all those bikes. And yeah, I had never gotten the opportunity to ride, even see one up front, until very recently when I was able to see a few of them. When I ride my UC Bullet, a lot of my friends or people from Instagram, they message me saying, bro, have you ridden the cast iron ones? Have you ridden the older Bullets? They're the real thing, and the UC ones are not all that great. And now I also see that further improvised versions of the Royal Enfield are out. We have the Continental 650, the Interceptor, which yes are classic styled bikes, but they're very modern engines from the inside. And I don't think I have a problem with that, because that's how time moves, right? Uh, Mine and your grandfathers had ridden horses, and I'm pretty sure that no bike can match the experience of riding a horse. So if our grandfathers would keep saying to us that, what are you guys riding these bikes, the real fun is in horses, uh, it's valid for them, but then it wouldn't serve their purpose, because now there are no horses left. So what I would do is I would try to grasp my hands on what's available to me, and that gives me the feeling of being one with it. I may not have been a horse dweller, or I wouldn't have spent a lot of time with horses, but maybe my grandfather has. But today, if I try go ride a horse, I'm going to get thrown away, right? So I see a lot of youngsters who also ride UCE bikes and who also ride modern retro bikes. I think it's not because they're not attracted to the bike because of the way it rides and feels. It's because how they look. And also, the thing is that when a guy rides a UCE bike for the first time, that's his benchmark of happiness. That's his benchmark of what a bike can do to my emotions, right? So if I have ridden a classic UCE and I have ridden cast iron bikes or older bikes, and if I have ridden vintage style Harleys, so obviously my benchmarks are going to be much higher. I would be definitely placing the older bikes differently in terms of ride experience. But a young 25-year-old, 23-year-old guy buying his dream Bullet for the first time, what he saw his father riding back in his old days, was never allowed to even touch it. Today, if he is given a UCE engine, I'm sure there's nothing running in his head that my father had a better bike. What's running in his head is that today I'm riding a bike which belongs to the same manufacturer, or maybe looks the way exactly how it is my father used to ride. So, see, times change and technology moves forward. Royal Enfield will not be able to sell a bike if they sell cast iron engines today. There was a time I remember when Royal Enfield was at the verge of its shutdown, and they were making only cast iron engines that time, and their production was down to less than 2,000 units a year. And with that kind of numbers, the company has to shut. And probably that's the reason why a lot of these companies have shut in the past. Java has been resurrected now, and BSAs are not to be seen. Nortons are very, very niche class motorcycles right now. So if a brand has to survive as a business, I'm talking about, if I have to survive, I have to move with the time. I have to offer things that the competitors are offering, or things that the technology that's available, I can use it to make my product better. I'm much more comfortable riding my UCE to Goa and back, because I know I can cruise at 80, 90 and not really care much about oil leaks and stuff like that, and still be able to make it. Had I been riding a 60s or a 70s or an 80s cast iron engine, I know I can't push the bike to more than 40, 50, 60 kmph when I'm doing a 2000 kilometer ride. So yeah, back in those days, the roads were so bad that 60 used to look like really fast. Today, the roads are good that even an 80, 90 feels boring on the highway. And maybe 10 years from now, you could see a Bullet doing 150 kmph and still be looking slower compared to its competitors. So for biking, I think it's like this, to each his own. If it makes you happy, that's all it matters. It doesn't matter what your grandfather rode or what your friends have ridden or how many bikes you've ridden before that. I mean, I can ride 10 bikes every day and be equally happy, because my happiness is not contained with the product that I'm riding. My happiness is contained with the experience I get from it. So I can be riding a DO in traffic or a Enfield on the highway and still be equally happy from the inside if I have that kind of a mindset. So I get a call from my friend saying that, bro, I have a budget of around 1.8 to 2 lakhs and I'm planning to buy a bike. And the next question he asks is, which Enfield should I buy? And I'm like, are you sure you want to buy just an Enfield? Because if you think logically, sensibly, from a technical standpoint, from a practicality point of view, I can suggest you maybe 3 more bikes which would be in the same price range and be able to give you better performance, better handling, more reliability, maybe different kind of ride feel altogether, and maybe even lower maintenance costs. And but still, why is it that people don't decide that they want to buy an Enfield? People just buy an Enfield. Getting it? So when a guy wants to buy a Pulsar or a Apache, so he will go and he will look up a Pulsar, an Apache, and an FZ, all of them from the same segments, compare the looks, the prices, and everything, and specs and everything, and then buy a bike. But when a guy wants to buy an Enfield, he will not look for a catalog, he will not look for a brochure, he will just go straight and buy off the bike. Maybe the only difference, the only choosing he will do is a Thunderbird or a Classic, maybe the color here and there. So one thing is true, that there is definitely something else at play beyond your numbers and comparisons and price charts and all those things that is driving people to ride an Enfield. The closest thing that I can tell you is that all other bikes are like your girlfriends, but your Enfield is like your wife. That's what I think it is, because if you have a girlfriend and you are in a semi-committed relationship with them, and 6 months down the lane things are not working out, you can just let her go and look for someone else. But the thing is, when you buy a Bullet, it's like your wife. If she's giving you problems, you don't leave her alone. You go and fix things up, and then you strengthen that relationship. And then 6 months later, again you get something happening. You don't leave the wife just like that. You again go fix things up and you strengthen that relationship. So when a guy who owns a Pulsar comes to me, I look at the condition of the bike, and the bike has been not serviced. It's the chain sprockets are out, the brake pads are out, everything is left, right, center. And the guy just comes, he gives me the bike, I fix the bike back to original, probably pays a 5 to 7, 10,000 rupees bill, and he has a brand new bike with himself. And the same guy would go back again and not service the bike for an entire year and come back after 8-10 months in the same way. You can't do this with an Enfield. Maybe it's the parts or the mechanisms or whatever. You can't treat an Enfield bike that way. An Enfield is the kind of bike that if it has a problem, it needs attention. It needs everyday attention. You need to be in sync with the bike. Your awareness, your interaction with the bike is it's like a two-way street. When you ride the bike, she gives you the pleasure. And when she has a problem, she gives you the responsibility of fixing it up, which if you don't, puts you in trouble. So I don't get in trouble, I'll take care of my bike. That's the kind of mindset I have with my bike. So when I go for long trips, I don't finish working on my bike and then take a long trip immediately. I finish working on my bike and I ride it for a week within Chennai first, and then decided now it's good to go for a long trip. But maybe with a Dominar you cannot do that. You can just get a Dominar, get an entire servicing done, and just shoot straight for Ladakh. But that's not something I would recommend to do with an Enfield, because it's a two-way street. It requires a certain kind of commitment, which most people don't have. So those who don't have it will get frustrated and will just bitch about it, which is okay. But those who go beyond the frustration and realize that, yes, if end of the day it's my bike and it's what I have to take care of it. And when they build that discipline into their life, they build that relationship with the machine, which is really crazy, because you're talking of a relationship between a living person and a non-living thing as such. It's still a thing, right? And that's really beautiful, because if someone can have the level of attachment with something that is not even a living thing in the first place, but it is being able to give you what a living person would give you in terms of the love, the pleasure, the happiness. I think that's something which is really embedded into the Enfield, culture as such.